Please hit the like button and the notification bell so that you know when I go live.
Passing me by. Chapter 50. Passing me by. Jem, it's me. Yeah, I know. Mimi's name had come up on his cell. She'd just been sitting next to him in the studio. She'd said she was going to the bathroom. What's the problem? Meet me downstairs in 5 minutes. I need to get away from Big Ant. 5 minutes later, Jem and I walked out of the Hit Factory and saw Mimi huddled in a doorway down the block, sucking on a cigarette, with her blue Yankees cap pulled down low over her Vuitton headscarf. Her roots were growing out, so they had to be covered. "Is this how it is?" he said. "You have to run away from your watchdog." "A damn shame, ain't it?" She stomped out the cigarette and started walking up the block. "Where are we going?" "To eat. I need food." "You walk? I thought you'd have a carriage waiting." "I want to go to Virgil's for barbecue," she said, continuing to walk up the block. "It's not far." Reluctantly, Jem followed. "I can't believe you left the funk shack," Mimi said 30 minutes later, gnawing ravenously on a plate of ribs. "You couldn't come to me, so I came to you. As a favor. And I happen to know you're getting triple your usual fee." Jem nodded. "And that." "I was going to come up for your wedding anyway," Jem and I said, shrugging. "So I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And you're staying at the Four Seasons. You're balling out of control. Your label is paying." "I don't want to work tonight. Let's go to Foyer." "Foyer? It's a club. It's hip-hop night." "I don't like clubs. I'd rather go back to the studio. You go. Just come back later." "Go with who? By myself?" "You must have a lot of friends there." "Jem," she pleaded. "It'll be fun. We'll listen to some music, have a few drinks. I don't drink. You'll have a soda, and we'll have a little fun. And then we'll go back to work later." "Fine," Jem said wearily, as if he'd just agreed to spend the day picking cotton in the hot sun. 2 hours later, Mimi was on the dance floor, feeling lovely after 4 caipirinhas, shouting, "I don't know what you heard about me, but a bitch can't get $1 out of me. No Cadillac, no perms, you can't see that I'm a motherfucking PIMP." Jem was in front of her, looking glum, rocking imperceptibly on his heels. Mustafa showed up with Vanessa, who was looking aggressively fabulous in her diamond diva necklace. She'd had it made. A white baby tee that was airbrushed with the slogan, "Hated by many, confronted by none." A gift from a stylist. And tiny red satin jogging shorts with white piping that said "Kiss" on one cheek and "My" on the other, from Patricia Field. Coming and going, she looked like a walking billboard that was advertising bitchiness. Vanessa gave the unfamiliar man with Mimi the once-over and let her disdain show. Jem was wearing a plain white t-shirt with a fresh barbecue stain, extra baggy gray sweatpants, and plastic Adidas slides over sweat socks. Vanessa looked like she wanted to make a citizen's arrest for the fashion crimes he was committing. His boxers were visible, and they weren't even Calvin or Ralph or Tommy. They looked like Hanes. When Mimi introduced her companion, Vanessa initially couldn't be bothered to shake his hand. Then Mimi stressed, "Gemini, the super producer." Vanessa spent the next 2 hours cuddled next to him in a booth like they were best friends. She identified him as a potential client for her yet-to-open image consultancy firm. After an hour, feeling Gemini was sufficiently befriended, Vanessa and Mustafa split to move on to Chromosome. Jem wanted to leave too, but Mimi wasn't having it. He finally got her outside, practically carried her. "Where do you live?" Jem asked her. "You need to go home." "Downtown," Mimi gurgled as he tried to hold her up. The foyer doorman hailed them a cab. "Where downtown?" Jem kept asking her. "What's your address?" "Downtown," Mimi kept answering. "Downtown." Jem dug into her purse for her phone as the cab driver waited impatiently for an address. "What are you doing?" Mimi wheezed. "I'm calling Aunt," Jem said, scrolling through her numbers. "Don't you have his number in here?" Mimi fell across Jem's lap. "Don't!" She grabbed for the door handle. "I think I'm going to be sick." "No sick in my car," the driver yelled, looking over into the back seat. "Get out!" Jem opened the door, but Mimi only coughed while the foyer doorman and some random clubgoers watched sympathetically. When she fell back onto the seat, Jem told the driver, "The Four Seasons, please." 20 minutes later, Mimi was passed out in his bed. She woke up at 8 in the morning. "Jem," she whispered, realizing she was staring at his bony back. "My head hurts." "That's what you deserve," he said. "Where's Lamont, by the way? I don't think he's going to appreciate your not coming home last night, and don't involve me in your drama." "Don't worry," Mimi whispered. "He's in L.A. He's not getting back until tomorrow night." Jem rolled over. "You better get going," he said, careful to stay on his side of the bed. "I'll see you later. We're working tonight." He looked over as his cell phone began vibrating on the bedside table. He answered. "Hi, Monty," he said, making a face at Mimi. He listened for a second. "Oh, really? Well, we went to dinner last night and then to some club, but we couldn't go back to the session." He put his middle finger up to Mimi. "Your princess was too woozy to work, so we just called it a night. I'm sure she's at home asleep." He hung up and said, "Your peoples are looking for you." "Whatever," Mimi said, crawling back under the covers. "What are you doing?" Jem said irritably, wanting her to leave. He did a lot of business with Lamont's label, and he wished she'd quit with these little girl games that could adversely affect his income. "I'm hungry," she said. "Order us some breakfast." Jem leaned over and grabbed the room service menu. "Here," he said, tossing it at her. "Order it yourself." Mama Jackson strolled into the cavernous lobby of the Four Seasons Hotel with Jeremy, the wedding planner, trailing close on Mama's Stuart Weitzman heels. "Remind me why we're having breakfast here?" Jeremy asked. "Because I hate the plaza," Mama replied. The plaza was a fine place to have a bar mitzvah or a wedding. It had old-fashioned prestige that way, but she'd never stay there or dine there. It wasn't her style. The indisputably more chic Four Seasons was. "So Mimi has her final fitting today?" Jeremy asked, once they were seated in the dining area off the lobby. "Yes," Mama said. "Vera has taken wonderful care of us." Jeremy looked up and squinted across the lobby. "Hey, there she is now." "Vera?" Mama exclaimed. But when she turned to look, she didn't see Vera Wang. Instead, there went the bride. Mimi was hurrying through the lobby, looking a fright. Jeremy threw his arm in the air to attract Mimi's attention, but Mama reached over and pulled it back down. "Don't make a scene, Jeremy." She picked up her cell and dialed Mimi's number, thinking, "Why is my future daughter-in-law sneaking out of a hotel at 10 in the morning looking so bedraggled?" When Lamont had called Mama this morning from L.A., he'd said that Mimi had left the studio last night and never returned, and then she hadn't answered her phone all night. Now Mama had an awful feeling. Lamont's fiancée was, sad to say, no Kendra. Mimi was always far too busy to go shopping or to eat lunch with Mama. And she'd become overtly disinterested in the wedding preparations. It's a fairy tale any woman would love to star in. Mama had gently scolded her at the last dress fitting. Appreciate how lucky you are, dear. Being an understanding woman, Mama allowed Mimi her tantrums here and there. It was just that things had begun to overwhelm her. Lamont was happier than Mama had ever seen him. That was all that mattered. Mimi had just disappeared from view when Mama heard her answer her cell phone. Mama detected the end of a yawn in her hello. Tired, dear? Yes, Mimi said. I just woke up. I'm still in bed. Oh, really? Mama thought, wondering what was going on here. I know we have the fitting at 1, Mimi said. I won't be late. Perfect, Mama said. See you there. She looked at Jeremy. He didn't need to be involved in this any further. Excuse me, Jeremy. He nodded, thinking she was going to get up. After he'd sat there for 30 seconds, he suddenly realized she wanted him to leave. So he did. Alonzo, Mama said, after reaching her son at home. Where is Vanessa? In bed, he said. Get her up, now. Vanessa got on. Were you out with Mimi last night? Mama questioned. Yes, Vanessa answered groggily. I saw her at foyer. And then where did you go? I left. She stayed there with Gemini. With Gemini? Who is that? A producer, Vanessa said, waking up now. Mama never asked to speak to her. Why? Mama wondered if she should reveal anything to Vanessa, then decided Vanessa might be useful for once. Because Lamont couldn't reach her last night, and he was worried. Big Aunt said she disappeared on him. She wasn't with Aunt at foyer, Vanessa confirmed. And now I just spied her leaving the Four Seasons. Vanessa was completely awake now. You don't say. She smiled. I'm distressed, Mama said, uncomfortable admitting that to Vanessa. But she could hear in Vanessa's voice that she was holding back information. What can you tell me? Vanessa lay in bed, twirling a strand of hair around her index finger, wondering how she should answer that loaded question. Things she considered. Mark Jacobs was talking about naming a new bag after Lamont's triple large princess. And Mimi was getting a Vogue cover. And Revlon was about to sign her to a contract. And not to hawk some disgusting anti-aging product. And word was that Lamont was foregoing the prenuptial. Lately, all Vanessa heard was bad news. Mimi kept whining about the Olga incident. Just to shut her up, Vanessa had said, if you're so mad about it, get even. Maybe she had. But with that bum, Gemini? Mama thought Mimi was innocent and sweet, while the old witch was always on Vanessa's case. But had Vanessa ever cheated on Alonzo? No, she had not. Not with another man. All I know is that Gemini is staying at the Four Seasons, Vanessa said casually. Mama loudly gulped air. But we shouldn't jump to conclusions, Vanessa said. Mama sat up very straight. What else are we to think? What was she wearing? Vanessa asked, looking to seal the deal. Jeans, a little pink jacket, and a baseball cap over a long scarf. Vanessa remarked, attempting to sound disappointed. That's the very same thing she had on last night. Mama hung up, wondering what she should do now. Vanessa went back to sleep. Chapter 51. Scenario. All the bridesmaids met at Mama's place at 10 o'clock that night. Attendance was mandatory. Imani, Ali C., Kiko, and Jordan were chatting and nibbling at the cheese plate. Vanessa, arriving 15 minutes late, went straight for the wine. Now that everyone was present, Mama took a seat in her chintz armchair and banged a heavy Steuben crystal paperweight on the coffee table like a gavel. Meeting is called to order. A hush fell over the living room. They all assumed this was yet another wedding prep meeting. Mama was running a tight ship. Never one to beat around the bush, Mama announced, "Mimi Jean is cheating on my son." Imani gasped, "No way!" As the other women's jaws dropped, Vanessa sang, "It's true." Mama hated to agree with Vanessa on anything, but she seconded that statement. Yes, it is true. She told them about seeing Mimi this morning, and then Vanessa supplied her supporting evidence. Annoyed that she had been summoned to be part of this cabal, Jordan said, "You don't know anything for sure. Maybe she has friends or family staying at the hotel for the wedding." "She has no family," Mama insisted. "Her only family coming to the wedding is her mother. That swindler Jerry is banned." "She has no other relatives coming to her own wedding?" Jordan said. "No," Mama replied. "Her father is dead, and there's no one on his side." In a casual, matter-of-fact tone, she added, "After Angela hooked up with Mimi's father, her people called her a nigger lover and never spoke to her again." Ali C., the only white person in the room, was the only one who looked taken aback at this. Jordan continued to come to Mimi's defense. "Maybe one of her friends is staying there." "She has only a few friends coming," Imani admitted, feeling weepy. "How could Mimi do this to Lamont? I should know. We're paying for them all." "And she lied to me," Mama said. "I called her from the Four Seasons, and she said she was still in bed." At the fitting that afternoon, watching Mimi spin around in her gorgeous tulle princess gown, Mama had felt a heaviness in her heart. Poor Lamont. She wasn't sure if she should tell him. He was so happy, and the wedding plans were past the point of no return. What to do? She'd fretted. What to do? Now she put the question to the room at large. So the question on the table is, do we tell Lamont? Imani said, "No, it will break his heart." Ali C. said, "No, the press is locked in. InStyle is covering it for the magazine and the television show, and the InStyle wedding issue with Mimi on the cover is hitting newsstands tomorrow. Absolutely not." Vanessa disagreed. "Of course you have to tell him. You have no choice." Jordan said, "I'm abstaining. It's none of our business." "My children will always be my business," Mama stated firmly, preparing to cast the deciding vote. Really, hers was the only vote. She was pretty sure Lamont had stepped out on Kendra. She was pretty sure he'd stepped out on everyone he'd ever dated. That was none of her business. Lamont had never promised those women anything, and that was just his independent streak rearing its head. Marriage, however, was a holy sacrament. Maybe Mimi had gotten her swerve on with this Gemini person. She had obviously been suffering from a hangover today. Lamont was always on her about drinking too much. She couldn't hold her liquor. Perhaps it was a mistake of youth, an itch that had been scratched. Lamont had scratched many an itch. Maybe it was karma that she satisfy her own. Mimi had certainly seemed more excited about the wedding today than she had any time during the previous few weeks. Mama knew she and Lamont were really in love. Lamont was happy, and she wanted him to stay that way. What her boy didn't know wouldn't hurt him. She looked around at the girls and handed down her verdict. "No," she said. Who did Vanessa think she was, telling Mama she had no choice? "We won't tell him." But she would tell Mimi after the honeymoon that such indiscretions would not be tolerated in the future. She'd let this one slide, but from now on, Big Aunt was going to be following her everywhere. Mama banged her makeshift gavel. Meeting adjourned. Lamont reclined back in his first-class seat on the red-eye to New York and smiled. Irv Green had told him that evening that he had the top spot at Augusta all locked up. The announcement would be made next week. Nate was getting everything arranged for the subsequent buyout of Triple Large. Lamont expected to net roughly $90 million. And he was getting married in 10 days. He'd never thought it would happen, and without a prenuptial. But he had no reservations, no cold feet. Everything in his life felt right. He fell into a deep, peaceful sleep with the smile still plastered on his face, his stomach as calm as the Caribbean Sea. It was good to be the king.
Hit the like button.
Chapter 52. Guess Who's Back? On his way out of Lux, DeMac threw up the hood of his black velvet cape, a prototype from his clothing line in the works, Macwear, as his primary security man, Tone Sizzle, cleared a path to his brand new yellow Hummer H2. Lena was at the wheel, checking messages on her cell. DeMac stopped to sign a few autographs for the clubgoers milling about on the sidewalk. Tone Sizzle stayed close and then pulled him away when too many people started to assemble. "You still need me tonight?" Tone asked, opening the passenger door to Daryl's car. "No," Daryl said. "We're just going home." "Okay, I'll pick you up at your house in the afternoon to go to the photo shoot," Tone said, and slammed the door. "Later, Lena." Lena looked over to respond, but Daryl had already put up the tinted window to keep his fans from gawking. "Where you been?" Daryl said, looking at the time on the dashboard. It was 2 a.m. "You said you was going to be here by midnight." "I just got finished," she said, finger brushing her freshly sewn-in weave. "It took 7 hours, and I left you a bunch of messages." "I left my phone at the Hit Factory," Daryl said. "We gotta swing by there before we go home to pick it up." Daryl ran his bejeweled hand through Lena's long, straight brown tresses. "It looks real good," he said flirtatiously. "Feels real good. I'm gonna hate to mess it up tonight." He grinned, then turned up the radio to pump Jay-Z's latest, Change Clothes. "Best believe I sweat out weaves," he rapped along. "Give Afro puffs like R-A-G-E." Lena finished the line. She rolled her eyes playfully. "That's what you look like when your pressing curl shrivels up," she teased as she pulled off. "Don't worry about me, baby," Daryl said, smoothing his shoulder-length hair. Snoop Dogg didn't have nothing on DeMac. "My stylist will hook it back up right tomorrow." He began bouncing on the seat, barely able to contain his gleeful energy. "I wish you had been with me tonight," he said. "Gambino was there and they played my new single and the whole place went crazy. Shit was off the hook." "I'm sorry I missed it," Lena said. "But I don't need any club crowd to convince me how tight your shit is." At the red light, she leaned over and kissed him. After years of chasing famous guys, who would have ever guessed that Lena would get what she wanted in the form of one Daryl Cleotis McHenry? When she'd found out that Daryl had quit Triple Large, she told him he was an idiot. But he'd proved himself a good friend to her, letting her stay at his place and all. A week after she'd moved in and demanded that Daryl order a top-of-the-line mattress for his second bedroom, he signed with Hits Inc. as a solo artist, and Country D began to look kinda cute to Lena. Then he let her listen to the album he had recorded, and he started looking downright fine. 2 nights after signing his deal with Hits, they slept together. Daryl made up for his shortcomings by being a very enthusiastic and generous lover. He liked to cuddle. She didn't, but she humored him. But he needed fixing, so she took him to a first-rate dermatologist and got his blotchy skin taken care of. She helped him pick out the right jewels at Jacob's. She got some, too. She offered to furnish the apartment, and he gave her an unlimited budget to do so. They'd sit on his new furniture listening to his songs while she cornrowed his hair and oiled his scalp. She'd pull out his baby hair and gel it down along his hairline. He liked that. Then she took him to Rod for his press and curl. When his album came out, she was right by his side, applauding him louder than anyone. They'd moved to a house in Inglewood, New Jersey. She furnished it from scratch and covered a wall with all the platinum plaques of albums Daryl had worked on. When he got a platinum plaque for his own album, she hung it right by the front door so everyone would see it first thing as they came in. No surprise, Daddy was furious about their relationship, but it didn't matter. She didn't need Daddy or his money anymore because she had DeMac. And she didn't need any of her old fair-weather friends. Fuck Mimi. Fuck Vanessa. Fuck Alonzo. Fuck Kiko. And double fuck that fat fuck Lamont. But in her honest moments, Lena had to admit that she missed Mimi. In her brutally honest moments, she had to admit she missed her something awful. And with Mimi's album doing so well, she couldn't escape her old friend. Mimi's voice was on the radio, her face on MTV. Lena couldn't even do her shopping at the A&P in peace. There she was in the checkout line. Mimi, eat or die. The Globe didn't have to play her like that. But damn, she looked toe up. And since when did Mimi chain smoke and drink coffee non-stop? Lena even went to see the Beauty and the Beasts show when it played at Madison Square Garden, taking Daryl's cousin, Monique, who was visiting from South Carolina. They sat in the cheap seats, which Monique had complained about. She begged to go backstage, but Lena didn't want to run into anyone she used to know. Mimi had Lamont, and Lena had DeMac. Lines had been drawn. The camps did not mix. But DeMac gave Lena what she needed. They went everywhere together. He kept her busy, sober, and very happy. She was acting as the creative consultant for his clothing line, Macwear. And he'd taken to calling her his rich bitch. She loved that. Lying on the couch, smoking a cigarette in Studio A of the Hit Factory, Mimi said, "Hey, Jem, when we finish tonight, let's go to Cheddar." "It's already 2 in the morning. Cheddar's an after-hours spot." "We're working after hours," Jem said tersely. Big Aunt walked in, and Mimi sat up at attention on the couch. "Aunt, you know what I really need right now?" He snatched the cigarette, a big no-no per Lamont, and stubbed it out in the ashtray. "Not this," he said. "An apple pie," Mimi said. "An apple pie?" Big Aunt repeated suspiciously, because that sounded like it was going to take some physical exertion from him. "Yup," Mimi said. "There's a 24-hour McDonald's on 42nd Street. "Okay," Aunt said, ripping a piece of paper from a nearby pad to take everyone's order. "Where's Billy recording?" Mimi asked the engineer. "I think he's in Studio B," the engineer said. "Aunt, don't leave until I come back," she called out as she headed for the door. "Make it quick," Lena told Daryl as she parked a few doors down from the entrance to the Hit Factory. But upstairs on the 7th floor, Sheila, the receptionist, had a bone to pick with him before she'd hand over his cell phone. "Just look at this, Daryl," Sheila said. Noting a flicker of disapproval fall over Daryl's face, she corrected herself. "Sorry, Damac." She pulled up her t-shirt an inch or two and revealed a pus-secreting mess around a gold ring in her belly button. "Damn," Daryl said, stepping back. "What the fuck happened to you?" "Your girl told me to go to some guy she knew to get a piercing. Said he was gonna hook me up. It cost $175 and the shit got all infected. And he won't give me my money back." She handed over Daryl's phone. Daryl walked back to the elevator and pressed the down button. "Well, you want to tell her she's downstairs right now." "I can't leave the desk," Sheila said. "But tell Lena to call me. I'm serious." Just as the elevator arrived, Billy the Kid ran out into the reception area with his gerbil in hand. "Country D!" he shouted mockingly upon spotting Daryl. "Country D!" Daryl stepped into the elevator without responding and quickly closed the door in Billy's face. Billy took it all in stride. He quickly headed for the stairs. Mimi walked into Studio B and saw Big Percy, Billy's cousin / legal guardian / bodyguard, dozing off on the couch. "Where's Billy?" she asked. "We're ordering from McDonald's." Big Percy mumbled, "He's running around here somewhere." Mimi looked in the lounge, which was empty, then went out to the reception area. "Have you seen Billy?" she asked Sheila. "He ran downstairs to chase after Daryl," Sheila said. "Will you go get him? Last time he ran out of here, they found him 2 hours later playing laser tag over at Barcode." "Sure," Mimi said, and pressed the button for the elevator. Several things happened almost at once. Lena's 5-carat diamond stud, a gift from Damac, came loose and she bent down, groping for it under the driver's seat. Daryl walked out of the hit factory and headed toward the car. A masked man stuck a sharp object into Daryl's back, demanding, "Give me your ice." "All of it?" Daryl yelped, and the violent jab in his back answered in the affirmative. Daryl shakily removed his 5 heavy platinum and diamond crucifixes and dropped them into a black laundry bag that was tossed at his feet. Then he slid off his bejeweled Jacob watch, 2 diamond cuff bracelets, and 4 diamond rings. They dropped into the bag with a clank. "The belt," the masked man demanded. Daryl pulled the enormous diamond buckle off his leather belt and handed it over. "Empty your grill." Daryl popped off his 6 diamond tooth covers, which spelled out Damac. "Shoelaces." Daryl leaned over and pulled the diamond-laced laces out of his Air Force Ones and threw them into the bag. Bag filled with jewels. The ice-jacker was set to make a break for it when Daryl pushed him back and drew his gun. Just then, the kid burst through the front doors of the hit factory, aiming to fling Brownie the gerbil on Daryl's head for old time's sake. He had Brownie cupped in his hands, ready to send him sailing through the air. The kid was laughing. The kid was always laughing, always joking around. But this time, the joke was on him. And it wasn't funny. Not in the least.